I bet if you go back and look at our reaction to Game 6 from last year, it was the exact same. That game was crazy last year with lead changes in the third period, but it's just all right. I just want to be fair. The more desperate team won. I think in the last two games, Toronto has, and with Matthews out and with Wall and net, has drastically changed their game plan. They've defended far harder through the neutral zone. They defended far harder in the defensive zone. I think you heard Jack. If people were watching the Nesson feed, the Bruins had more shots blocked than they actually had shots on net tonight, and that's a level of urgency and desperation coming from Toronto that Boston hasn't shown. They showed a little bit of it today in the third period, but you still only mustered 9 shots. And I think the thing that was frustrating for me is if you look at Geeky's goal, it's just throwing a puck on net. There's a rebound. Wall's one thing is like he collapses and doesn't move well east-west. And I asked for advice from a goalie coach. That's what I got out of it. Like you got to make him move, but you got to shoot the puck. Like we've been saying it, you even look at the goalie pulled at the end of the game. Puck goes on the half wall to Brad Marchand, and he's looking for the perfect pass out in front of the net. Like, and the way they score is just you're throwing it. It's a little bit of a rebound, and it goes in the back of the net.
No, it's pathetic. And again, like, by the way, this is Bruins post-game show. That's Carl Corazzini, Evan Marinofsky, presented by Prize Picks and Game Time. Use promo code CLNS at both places. Prize Picks for up to $100 match on your first deposit, and Game Time for $20 off your first pair of tickets. To me, where they lost this game was the first period. It is. Like, to come out in 2 straight games where you can eliminate the opponent. You can eliminate the Leafs on home ice in Boston. You get 2 shots. You can then eliminate the Leafs in Game 6 in Toronto. You get 1 shot. Now, I get it. They looked better in this first period than they did in the first period in Game 5. That's fine. Nesson loved telling us that, right?
Marginally. But, like they played faster. They weren't better. Like they weren't urgent. They didn't create offensive opportunities. They defended harder because they were in their end. I mean, the shots were whatever they were, 12-1, 11-1.
No, my point is this is 2 straight games. They didn't come ready to play. Yeah, and I think that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And again, like just how fast things shifted in this series. And again, credit to Toronto. Like, I was texting you this during the game. They were clogging the neutral zone. They gave the Bruins no time and space in the offensive zone. The Bruins made no adjustments. There were no what do you call it? There were no good routes into the offensive zone by the Bruins. It was awful. And they scored. I didn't even know they scored. I was coming upstairs to do this. So they scored a goal at the end. Whoop-de-doo. But 1 shot in the first. And then they get shots throughout the game, slowly but surely. Wall plays great. This series has completely shifted. And it shifted after Game 5. We'd mentioned that, but just where it's at now, like it's 3-3. Nobody felt good going into Game 6. I can tell you, if you felt good going into Game 6, you're definitely feeling bad going into Game 7 if you're a Bruins fan. And I know this has happened twice, 2013 and 2018, but this is a different team. This is a very different team. And I'm curious, what you saw Leafs adjustment-wise with the Leafs and what the Bruins didn't do in your eyes.
Well, I think you have to talk about the adjustments that the Maple Leafs have made. They've clearly played better. I think there's a sense of urgency without Matthews in the lineup. They defend a little bit harder. What they're doing in the offensive zone on the forecheck is taking away the walls. Earlier in the series, they had 2 forwards that were fairly aggressive. One of the Leafs forwards used to chase behind the net. So some of those soft center ice passes were available. Now they've backed off. The F1's been really aggressive. He's pushed he's pushed the Bruins defender up the wall into traffic. And so they've been able to seal off that wall, and then that's how they've created zone time. Bruins have not. And now if you watch Hampus Lindholm, he's done the same breakout play every time. And he's too good of a player, so it's got to be the game plan has got to be go up the wall, try to alleviate pressure with something, because he keeps going into traffic, and Boston keeps going puck side. They never come. They have not done one reverse, and I had it written down and I completely forgot it because I'm just frustrated. There was one play in the second period. I think it was Geeky and McAvoy. Geeky is just to McAvoy off his left shoulder. You have the Toronto forward that is pushing McAvoy to go into his defensive partner, and McAvoy just passes to a defensive partner, allowing Toronto to forecheck. If he had just done the reverse, you're out the other side. So the forecheck has hemmed Boston in their own end, and they can't get any exits. And when they can't get any exits, they don't have any speed. When they don't have any speed, they don't have the ability to forecheck, and so everything's dead. You've made zero adjustments. Zero on breakouts. Zero. It's consistently move the puck strong side. It's consistently chip it up off the glass. It's consistent. And so what I think they're more afraid of is the Toronto pinching than they are that F2 that's just sitting on the wall. It's been turned over every time.
Again, like I don't understand, and it's unbelievable and it's believable about what this team is doing. It's a mirror of last year, except last year's game 6, which our producers have pulled up our reaction to last year. I'll play it in a little bit, but I want to talk about this game. I want to talk about this game first, and dive into that. I just, as you said, no adjustments, none, and there weren't any in game either, and there's no urgency. And I just like, how do you do that 2 years in a row? At least last year's game 6, they scored a bunch of goals, right? The top 6 was doing things. It was in net and defensively where they were terrible. This year, Swayman's been great. I think we can agree Jeremy Swayman should go game 7. I don't think there's really any debate. He's been great.
Yeah.
He's been great. And I just, nothing. There's nothing. Like, there's nothing to say. And I don't know, where do you feel confident going into game 7? I don't. I know most people probably don't. Like, they look beaten, and the Leafs look faster, and they have no Matthews. They don't have Austin Matthews right now. There's no Austin Matthews. You have 2 games without Austin Matthews, and they've looked great. They've looked better without Matthews.
So I just have to explain. Someone asked a question in the comment section. What does it mean, F2 sitting on the wall? So the Maple Leafs first player is going in to put as much pressure on the defenseman as possible. And their second forward earlier in the series was coming down to once contact was made on that by the first Maple Leafs player, that player was coming down below the goal line to then get the puck. Now what that second Maple Leafs player is doing is just sitting on top of Boston's winger that is trying to get the breakout pass. So they just sit there because they know that Hampus Lindholm and others are just going to chip it up the glass. So their goal, instead of trying to create a turnover below the goal line, that turnover now is happening at the hash mark area or top of the circle. So all I mean by F2 sitting on the wall is that second Maple Leafs forechecker isn't being as aggressive. They're not coming down below the goal line. They're just sitting at the hash mark, waiting for the chip up the wall.
And when they don't chip it, they clog the neutral zone, right? And then the Bruins just for Maple Leafs, and they're forcing them to dump it in. They did this in game 5, right?
Yeah, and you saw the turnovers late, I think, on Max Domi's creating the turnover on Beecher, and then on right, like what they're doing is trying to force you to, if they sit with those 4 guys back, they're daring you to dump it in. If you don't dump it in, they're daring you to, you've essentially got to go 1-on-4, and then it's just a turnover, which that's what Beecher did, right? Turnover, breakaway for Domi. Swayman makes a huge save. And so that's been the thing. I don't think Toronto's made as much adjustments in game, right? Like I don't think you saw them once they scored the 1-0 goal to go up 1-0. I don't think they changed their game drastically, but they've, between games from game 4 to 5, they changed their game drastically. And part of that tonight, and they were far more urgent than they were in game 5. Toronto was far more urgent tonight. Just the way they defended, the way they blocked shots tonight. They were the better team. They deserved to win, right? Like I know people want the penalty call. It's a penalty. It was, but you still didn't score a goal all night. And the one power play opportunity you had, you did nothing. You did nothing. You did nothing.
So this is the thing. I mean, we can talk about that low ride play because that was huge. By the way, I tweeted that, and within like 3 minutes, that had like 1,000 interactions and all that stuff. I don't know how you don't call that. And I think it was Chris Rooney who's looking directly at it from the corner, and he looks to the other ref to see if they were calling it, and he points at it, and they didn't call it. And again, I was shocked at that. And I know Leafs fans were all in my mentions being like, Lowry was grabbing the stick. Lowry was holding the stick. Well, that doesn't give you permission to throw the guy's head in, or to throw him from behind into the glass. It just doesn't. And we're all for playoff hockey. It gets more physical. We're all for that. But for that kind of hit from behind to not be called is ridiculous. Is that why you lost the game? I mean, it's a reason, but it's not number one. It's not number two. It's not number three. The top three reasons are your top six is doing nothing right now. As a whole, your offense is doing nothing, and you're not making any adjustments. And I'll add a fourth. You're not urgent at all. And maybe those all tie in together. They do. But, I mean, it's unfortunate, obviously, that right after that low right hit from behind wasn't called. Nylander immediately scores, bounces off McAvoy. And this is, I'll say this a couple times throughout this because I know people kind of come in and out. In game 5, when it was Brad Marchand who missed that empty net, or somewhat empty net in the third period, and then Trent Frederick couldn't elevate the puck over Woll's pad. By the way, Woll's played great. I saw some of the comments being like, Woll's the Leafs' secret weapon. He is. He's been outstanding in the 2 games. I know he hasn't faced a ton of shots, but he's been really solid. When those didn't go in, the memories of last year started to really come back of like, oh my God, those are easy things to capitalize on. And they didn't. And then you look at tonight, right? And just pucks bouncing over sticks. That play, I think it was in the third period, Brazeau was driving the net, puck went over his stick. There was that one sequence in the third period where Coyle and Marchand were jamming at it. Carlo had a shot that went off Riley and trickled past the net. It's little plays like that, plus the low ride no call goal right after, reminds you a little bit of 2019 Game 5, Bruins Blues, the missed trip on Achari. It's those types of things where it's like, man, things are really starting to shift in the league, like luck-wise, everything-wise. The series is in their hands. And that's on the Bruins. Like, that's completely on the Bruins for allowing the Leafs to jump back in this series. And not to just get back into it, but to have it tied now. I mean, they have the upper hand completely going into Game 7, but it's those little plays like that, whether, luck, puck bounces, when it's not going their way, that indicate that the Leafs are the favorite going into Game 7. How could you not feel that way?
Is that a question to me? You ask me?
I mean, it's just a statement. It's just a statement. And that's where we're at. Like those types of plays. And,
so I think, go ahead. Sorry.
And that's on the Bruins. That is on the Bruins.
Yeah. And I think, and you heard Jack Edwards allude to it late in the third period as well. And again, that's if you listen to the Nesson broadcast, right? I got a couple of things that he made some interesting points. I think Toronto iced the puck 3 times in a row. And they said at some point you've got to make them pay. But Edwards also said it's as if Toronto's not scared to get you in the faceoff dot again. 63% tonight for Toronto. That's not good enough. And so you saw it. Okay, so low rise should be a penalty. Bruins ice the puck, and then Toronto makes them pay. So you get what is some sort of luck, but the last 2 games they've made the Bruins pay for any small mistake. Again, the first goal against Boston in game 5 was an icing. Win a face-off, McCabe scores. You're not doing that right now.
No.
And you needed a performance like Nylander gave you tonight from Pastrnak. You need it at some point, and he's not playing. He's not playing well.
He got you a double minor. That was what he got you.
Yeah,
again, well. And him, and the top 6. Marchand obviously was huge in those first 4 games. One of the top 2 reasons why, you came out of that 3, up 3 games to 1. But the top 6, the scoring has dried up, and there just aren't many chances. Again, I go back to Carl. You're a coach. How on earth do you go into 2 elimination games in a row and get 2 and 1 shots in a first period? Yeah, you want to set you want to jump out, you want to set the tone, right? And to not do that, to me, that's of all the egregious things, that might be the most egregious. Yes, Carl Corazzini.
So that's not making adjustments again. Yeah, right? Part of who you've been all year is looking for the quality shot, and we just talked about Brad Marchand has it on the half wall with a minute left in a game. You're down, and they're looking for that play back door. So in that first period, you're trying to. It's the same thing. It's off the rush. It's the 80-foot cross ice pass. It's the little slip play off the rush, trying to get it through to a guy coming through the middle, as opposed to, all right, I got to bear down, I got to put it on the net, and I got to have 2 guys crash, because that's where you're at right now, and you don't want to do that. And it's not until the third period where you're like, oh crap, we've got to get urgent here, so let's make this little bit of a change. But that's playoff hockey. And again, and you heard it. You didn't hear it because I keep talking to probably a lot of Toronto people. I keep talking about the NESN broadcast, right?
You don't think they're watching the NESN broadcast?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Nor should they, because right, anytime you get an opportunity to listen to a game on CBC or something like that, it is so much better. But I digress.
Yeah, I know.
So they talked about that in the playoffs, Toronto, with their zone entries, have dumped the puck in more than any team in the National Hockey League. Yeah, well, it's working right now, right? They've made Boston uncomfortable with the dumps. They forced the turnovers. They're playing a different game than they're capable of playing. Boston hasn't changed. They are who they are. Who they are. They want the quality shot. They're looking for it. They don't want to create as much. And that's the thing that's frustrating, is in two first periods against Joseph Woll, who was a backup this year. He was a backup at the beginning of the series. You haven't tested him in the first period.
Not at all.
You've let him get comfortable. You haven't put any pressure on the net on him, because
you've scored 1 of 3 goals. You've scored one goal on 3 shots in the first period against him.
Yeah. So you can't score if you don't shoot the puck. It's not a possibility. I don't know if you know that, Evan. If you get no shots, you can't score.
No.
Did you know that?
Is that true?
Yes.
Is that true?
It is true.
Do you have a source on that?
I'm going to go Wikipedia on that one. If you do not shoot the puck, you can't score.
A couple people in there are mentioning, or a lot of commenters are mentioning the point of Montgomery's job being on the line on Sunday. And it's an interesting thing, because it is, in my eyes. You can't lose 2 straight first rounds after being up 3-1. And what's funny is he's had 2 awesome regular seasons, right? Last regular season was terrific. The best regular season team in history. And this year, with the odds against them, and not high expectations, they were first most of the year and then finish in second. But 2 straight years of basically a mirror image, right? Overcoaching or overthinking the lines, not a lot of urgency and eliminate in closeout games, not getting the job done. Last year it was defensively. This year it's offensively. And I get it was a worry coming into this series of, their Bruins 5-on-5 offense isn't that great. Pastrnak's really your only guy. And, Pastrnak's been invisible, at least in the past couple games, but overall, for the majority of the series, invisible. But again, it's what you mentioned, the lack of adjustments and, futzing with the lineup last game in game 5. And this is where we're at. Like 2 straight years of this. This is the same thing. They mentioned all at the end of the season, and they mentioned at the beginning before the playoffs started, they weren't thinking about last year. Last year was not talked about or anything. But they looked nervous in game 5. They looked nervous. They looked like the team on the ropes. And tonight it's almost like they're trying to protect a lead with like a minute left for the whole game. Just playing scared, conservative. And again, it goes back to Montgomery. Like, who's going to, again, they have not lost yet. There's still game 7. It's Saturday night, right? Like, so I'm not saying anything too quick, but like in the event that they do, they can't just run it back next year with the same crew. They can't. You can't. So that's the guy who takes the fall. And again, I think it comes back to what we mentioned at the start of the show. 2 straight elimination games, 3 shots on net combined in both. They weren't ready to play in either game, and they didn't make adjustments. And that's on the coaching staff. It is. And, I think Montgomery's 100% coaching for his job on Sunday. I think.
Yeah, I think I'll say what I said the other day, and that's that he's been an unbelievable regular season coach. And I think and I will say that this year was even more impressive than last year because this roster is nowhere near as good as last year was.
No.
Right. And to be able to get guys to play above their head at times, right? Like Coyle, Zacha had good regular seasons. Now, what I will say that he does really well is during the regular season, he got them to play to their structure every night and be really consistent. And being consistent, that's about habits, and that can be a skill set. And he certainly gets those guys to be able to do that. So there's no doubt that he's a good coach that the guys respect. What's been a struggle here is to make the adjustments, right? Like the adjustments that he's made has been to players, not to system. And sometimes you've got to make the adjustment to suit who you're playing, right? Like right? Like it can't always be, we do this well, we're just going to keep doing this. It's shown the last 2 games it hasn't worked. So you've got to make minor tweaks, not to players, not always to players, sometimes to the system as well. But by and large, there's a lot of the same characters that are still on this team from last year as well, and you have to hold them accountable. Like the unfortunate thing for them, unfortunate thing for Montgomery is that a lot of those guys have longer term contracts than he does. So he's the easy fall guy. Right?
It's easy to fire a coach. It's not easy to uproot a core.
Yeah, like I can't imagine he's going into the locker room prior to game 5 and game 6 and saying, "Hey, come out, don't be urgent."
Oh, of course. Of course not.
Right? Like, so you're talking about professionals that have been around and played in high leverage games that haven't been able to get themselves up. And that and whether that's fear, whether that is thinking about last year, that's on them. Right? Like that portion, the getting up and being ready to play in the first period's on them, the adjustments on the coach.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like my point is the easy decision is to fire the coach. And I'm not like, again, it's not just on Montgomery. I mean, your top 6 isn't doing anything. Player guys like Hampus Lindholm are turning the puck over with regularity coming out of their own zone. Like you can't go and just blow it up. You're not blowing this up. I know there's a lot of people in this comment section right now that want to see a whole new core and a whole new team. You're not blowing this up player wise. You're not. Maybe you make a couple, above minor moves, right? Like Linus Olmark is one that everybody knows, but do you make another move with kind of a core player?
Yes.
But so that, yeah, but you're not trading McAvoy or Pasternak. Those guys are not getting dealt. They're not. So the easy move is the coach. And I think they can, I'm seeing a lot of people saying you have to blow it up, Evan. And I've talked about this before. If you guys, like myself included, have a tough time watching this, have fun sucking for 3 years. Like the Blackhawks, the Sabres. You want to be the Sharks? You want to be the San Jose Sharks? You want to watch unwatchable hockey throughout the whole year? Like, that's the thing. You have the pieces. They're not doing it. They're not doing it. And, I don't think a rebuild is the move if they lose in Game 7. I don't think it is. Now, you can question that room. You can definitely question the room. You can question the leadership of McAvoy and Pasternak. And, do they have it, right? Does that group have it? That when, McAvoy was younger, and he was in a Game 7 in the cup. And, Pasternak was there too. And all that stuff. And, since then the playoff success hasn't been there, but I'm not blowing up the roster. I'm not doing that, And by the way, if they win in Game 7, we'll be like, man, remember after Game 6? Remember what we were saying? What we were saying after Game 6?
No, because if you're not able to break out against Toronto,
yes,
what are you going to do against Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're losing in 4 or 5, right? Like Florida's a whole heck of a lot harder to play against than Toronto is, and I'm not taking anything away from Toronto having made the adjustments to their game that they have, but that's a physical series, and if Boston's turning over pucks now against Toronto, you're going to turn them over all night against Florida, and then. So you don't feel good about
it's 2 straight years, Carl, of just problems breaking the puck out. And I know that's not the biggest issue they have right now, but it's still an issue. And you're right. When you go play Florida, who was the OG at opening up this issue for you, it's going to be an issue. It's going to be a real big issue if they move on to Florida.
And did you watch? Did you watch the breakouts for Boston tonight?
I did.
I guess that's the mesmerizing thing for me, because you have 17 coaches. Now I'm getting into that territory. I'm glad I work at St. Mark's, as no one's going to look to hire me for anything else when I say this stuff. But you have 17 coaches. You have little iPads on the bench that tell you exactly what's going on. And sitting in my living room, and what's wrong with going out the weak side? Why not try it? Why not try going out the weak side? And because here's the adjustment that Toronto made tonight, and I know I'll bore you, but now you have 3 guys flooded to puck side. So 3 of Toronto's guys are coming towards a puck. That at the beginning of the series, they were sending someone behind the net. It was consistently, so their third forward was consistently following Boston's second defenseman. They haven't really done that now, and that player now has come in front of the net to follow the puck on contact, so that the second Toronto guy can just sit on the wall. There's been plenty of opportunities to go out the weak side, but that hasn't. And I feel in my head one time McAvoy got the puck, looked out the weak side, and was like, what am I doing? And he just chucked it up the glass. And I was bewildered. When I was a kid, for all these people out there, I was a diehard Boston Red Sox fan. I don't know why. I was 9 years old.
You grew up in Boston. That's why
I grew up in Framingham, Massachusetts, and this is context for the story I'm about to tell. But I was 9, and every time an inning didn't go the way I wanted it to, I would throw the clicker, or so for people from the remote control. I would throw at the couch, and my parents would have to come in and talk to me, and I would then turn to slamming my fists on the bed. That's where I was tonight with the breakouts. Like, what are we doing? Like, I was mad. I was mad because try something different. You've been unable to get out of the zone, and I know it's easier said than done. You're playing a group of really good National Hockey League players who are the best players in the world, and they come with and they play with a lot of speed, but you also are very good, and you've got to be able to get it out of the zone. Just, I don't know, maybe a couple times in a first period.
It goes like what's so interesting to me is a game like that, right? That's very physical, low scoring. That should be the Bruins' bread and butter. We said this in the first 4 games, right? That's how the Bruins are going to beat the Leafs. And, again, just inability to generate offense, but it starts in their own zone, right? There's no clean zone exits. There's no clean trips to the neutral zone. And Lord knows there's no clean offensive zone entries. And when there is, it's a quick hit the brakes and nothing, right? Chip it in the corner. Leafs defender's already there, right? And that's what's happened in these last 2 games, but especially tonight. And yeah, of course, there were some chances there in the third, and that's great, right? Just like last game, right? There were some chances in the third. There was a chance start of overtime last game, but in the end, it didn't matter because it wasn't a full game of chances. And, I think when we look at this series as a whole, right? I think the X factor has been Samsonov. Samsonov let in some garbage goals in those first 4 games, and that allowed the Bruins to win and be up 3-1. And since then, Woll has made some really good stops. Credit to him. He's made the simple saves. Credit to him. And I think that's another reason why this is 3-3, because the Bruins have had chances, again, late in games when they're more urgent. But again, it's not enough throughout the course of a game. And shots, by the way, the Leafs blocked everything tonight.
Yeah.
The Maple Leafs were blocking every shot. And credit to them. Credit to them. Again, they've made adjustments, and blocking shots isn't an adjustment, but an active, hey, we're going to block more shots tonight and all that stuff. Credit to the Leafs. I give credit to the Leafs, but the Bruins did not help themselves.
No, without Matthews, they've been a better team. They've been harder to play against. Just what you see in the defensive zone too is they close out so fast now.
Yes.
Active sticks, penalty kill was much better. And I think we shared a text, and so the adjustments or the lack of adjustments haven't just been on the breakout. In the offensive zone, again, mesmerizing. We talked about it's 1980 cycle. It's once it gets to the half wall, it goes behind the net. Now, if you watch if you are watching the game and you saw Toronto do it third period too, usually when you go behind the net, it's to come out the weak side to alleviate the pressure, and then you'll either make a play at the net, find someone in the slot area, or you go to the point, depending on what the coverage looks like. Boston will purposely put it behind the net to a guy that's protecting the puck. He's not coming out. He's not coming out that weak side to alleviate any pressure. He's pushing the puck right back into traffic. And so the reason why I don't love playing behind the net, if the goal is to just have the puck behind the net, is because now Toronto now it's a 5-on-3, but right? The wingers will come down.
Yep.
The defenseman just pushes you out on your backhand, and there's no one really to pass to except the point. Now, if that's fine, I'm all for passing the point. I love low to high hockey, but now you've got to add diversity to your offensive game. And so what I mean by that is they've passed it when they go low to high. The D-man almost exclusively goes D to D. Then that D-man's looking for a shot off his back heel. Or they're trying to hit their other option. Their second option has been, and you only really see it with Pastrnak. Pastrnak comes up as high as the top of the circle, and they try to hit that pass there. And at no point does the Bruins defenseman gain middle ice. They never have a third forward come up high, which
No.
is dragging Toronto out at all. So you said in your text, like, all right, they've clogged this net front area, they've clogged this middle. Okay, so now you're going to drag them out, force them to do
Yeah.
something they're uncomfortable doing. Get a third player high, activate your weak side D, try to pass through seams. They try to do something, but what they've done is it's only D to D and it's only behind the net. I don't know. So the limit, I'm playing with my, this is for everyone out there, I'm playing with my, this is my charger so I don't run out. It's right here.
I love it. You've made adjustments. You have made adjustments.
Yeah.
You have made adjustments. I respect that.
Yeah, same chair, but now I brought my charger over here. So
I like that.
I feel good. Yeah,
I thought that was like a pen to do for the whiteboard. I thought you had like a pen. I always have a pen in my hand. It makes me feel smarter.
Well, if the Bruins make it, we said this was an adjustment we were going to make. If the Bruins, and maybe this was the kiss of death, if the Bruins made the second round, that's when I was going to bring out the whiteboard. But what do I know?
You're right. You're right about the offensive zone. And I think part of it is they're not getting enough clean zone entries, right? They're not having enough sustained ozone time to, you didn't see that until the third period, really, where you could do that, even attempt to do that stuff. And like, you mentioned it, like Toronto's closing so fast on Bruins forwards entering the zone. And, that's hurting that. But, even more so, like you're not in there long enough. You're not getting in there at all, really. And I think there's a lot. Well, we collect ourselves. Our good friends over at Prize Picks make Game 7 a little more fun. So here's a word from our friends over at Prize Picks. Quick break in the action to tell you about my good friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks has something for every sports fan, from basketball and hockey to League of Legends and everything in between. You could pick LeBron, Caitlin Clark, Connor McDavid, and Jude Bellingham all in the same entry. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And the best part, quick withdrawals, and it's easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. As the Bruins playoffs roll on, I'm liking the pick of Jeremy Swayman more saves. He's just been so good of late. And you know what? I also like Jake DeBrusk more goals. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Now, back to the show. So, Carl, before we continue on with this conversation, our great producer, Amit, who stays up with us, we love Amit, went back and found our reaction to Game 6 last year when the Bruins were in the midst of choking away a series. So he's going to play that for you right now. So Amit should have it up in a second.
Oh, that's a good picture.
Oh, boy, let's see this. Wow. I mean, like, there's nothing to say.
No.
Bruins lose Game 6, 7-5. I mean, Carl, we're gonna dive right into this. I'm baffled. I mean, that was as crazy a game as you could put together, but that was also as disappointing a game as you could put together for the Bruins. And I know that people are gonna look back to the Brandon Carlo goal that went off the board and say that was a huge missed call, and you can debate that all you want, but there are such bigger problems. Wow. Ha!
Very similar, right?
Down to the glasses. I mean, these are different glasses, but oh my God. Like, it's eerie. It really is. I mean, it's really eerie how it's just repeating itself. Time is a flat circle. And we had the exact same reaction. I think I came on here, and I think this time I just kind of like didn't say anything. You just, to start the show, for people who were on here for like the very start, you just took it and ran with it. You're like a running back who just gets the ball and just like barges ahead. I was just kind of sitting there like, you got to be kidding me. But yeah, again, like going back to this game in 2024, I just, there's, do you have any hope for Game 7? I think yes. I think that there's some, like, I think history again is the reason you're somewhat optimistic for this, right? The way they've played against the Leafs, the way the Leafs have treated Game 7s in the past. But like going off these last two games, no, like you're going to need Swayman to be standing on his head in Game 7. And by God, if the Bruins come out with a shot in the first 10 minutes, they're going to get booed off the ice at their own freaking rink. But do you have any hope for Game 7? I'm curious.
Well, I think you have two organizations right now playing that have had a tough time closing out in Game 7s. So I think in this instance, both teams have a level of stress, right? I think Toronto can play a little bit freer not being at home, right? And not having that pressure, right? Do I have hope? Yeah, I have hope. There's still Boston has good players. They have a good team. They've got to play up to their capabilities to even have a shot. And I don't know, pun intended, to have a shot. They just the level of urgency, right? Like the level of urgency that they had in the third period tonight is the way that they got to play the whole game. Can you sustain that over 60 minutes? Like you've got to be able to do that. You have to. And I don't know if I feel better about them being at home because you're right. If they come out and have a period like they have done the last two games, they'll get booed. They'll get booed mercilessly. I feel like they were booed in Game 7 against St. Louis in the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2019.
And against Florida last year. Remember, they were flat for most of the first two periods.
Yeah,
I don't get it. Is it a lack of adjustments? Is that what's like making them so flat? They can't even like get out of their own way. Is that what that is?
No, I mean, I think you play tight to start the game. I think initially you're trying to play not to lose, right? Like you don't want to be the one that makes the mistake to put you down 1-0, because if you're down 1-0, then you, right, like there's a stress and anxiety on you, and you play up tight, and that's a little bit harder. So I don't know. I don't think it's the lack of adjustments that forces them to be flat. So I have hope. I'm glad I changed after Game 1 to say this was going 7. I just don't know who I have coming out of Game 7. If you judge it just on the last two games, Toronto's winning the game.
Yeah.
You can't. They've played much better the last two games, and I would say way better tonight. Right? I'll still go back to Game 5 was such a wasted opportunity because
yes,
Toronto didn't play particularly well. They played better than you, but it wasn't like they went out and won that game. Like Wall was great down the stretch, but you played marginally better than Boston. Tonight, you played much better. You were far more urgent. You were far more desperate. And that level of desperation that Toronto showed tonight, Boston's going to show for just the first period. Just put some pressure on Wall for the first period. Force Toronto to play from behind and see what that looks like and see how they play.
Is this true? 6 1/3, by the way, has been a loyal follower of all 6 of our postgame shows, so much love. Is that true? No team in NHL, NBA, or MLB history has ever lost consecutive 3-1 series leads? I mean, I'm going to take your word for it. That's nuts. That is the most Bruins thing ever. You want to know something else stunning, Carl? This is a stat that I can tell you for a fact is true. Do you know who has the third most shots on goal among all Bruins in this series?
Yeah, Brandon Carlo.
Thank you to Ty Anderson for that tweet. And 6 1/3 is saying, yes, it is. I believe you 6 1/3. That is crazy. But I think Carlo having the third most shots on net is crazy. And it goes back to like, you're not getting anything from your top guys outside of Marchand. And, Coyle. And like I said at the beginning of the series, like, oh, those guys are Coyle's task was shutting down the Matthews line. Well, Matthews isn't there anymore. Your task is shutting down Domi and Bertuzzi and Marner. And I'm not saying that's, not a big thing, but still you need something out of those guys. You need something out of your top 6 guys. And you haven't got it at all. At all. You have not gotten anything. And to me, that's been the big difference over these last 2 games, right? Is like we said it after game 1, when they got a bunch of bottom 6 scoring, like, oh, this is great, but you're not going to get that every game. Bottom 6s can be X factors, but your top guys need to be your top guys. And I think when Jesper Boquist continues to be one of your best players and Brandon Carlo has your third most shots on net, this is what happens, right? Like you can't consistently win that way. It's great that your bottom 6 plays pretty well and can get dirty in the corners and can, do what they've done over the course of this series, but you need your top guys to step up. And again, it hasn't been there. It just has not been there. And, I know Pasternak's taken a lot of crap and rightfully so. There's not a lot of purpose. Like, and you mentioned it last show. I think you mentioned it after game 5. He needs someone better to play with. That was what you were saying, right? Like he needs a center who can kind of set him up a little bit more. So he's not the only guy on a line, especially in a 7-game series where you're kind of targeting shutting him down. That was your point, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's fair to expect that of Zacha or Coyle. Good players, not playmakers by any stretch. Right? Like Pastrnak.
Zacha's gotten a lot better this year. I will say, like, Zacha has been a better center this year. This is one thing. So that's why it's also a surprise that he's not been producing at the level he was during the regular season right now.
Yeah, but he's not a number 1 center. I'm not going to throw the word elite on there, but for his career, he's played. I mean, last year he played wing, right?
Yes,
for most of the year, and so Pastrnak can certainly create on his own. I don't think anyone is questioning that. But every once in a while, you need someone that can pass you open, and he hasn't had that this series. And I'm not taking away blame from him at all. I still, even today, turning away from battles, not stopping on pucks. So a lot of what you've seen throughout the series was a continuation tonight. But for someone that scores the way that he's capable of doing, if he gets passed open, he's scoring every time, right? But in this series, he's had to create on his own, and he hasn't helped himself, and he's not getting help from anyone else either.
You know how I know that they're getting a little antsy over there? Montgomery just called out with the Bruins. Montgomery just called out David Pastrnak. So I don't have the exact quote, but Steve Conroy from the Boston Herald, who's there, tweeted, Montgomery said Pastrnak needs to step up and be the dominant player he can be. First time he's really called out the superstar. And again, that's a sort of a last minute break glass in case of emergency type of move, right? Call it. It's not something Montgomery's ever done. Cassidy used to do that on the reg. Cassidy used to do that all the time about guys, and it was just kind of that's what he was doing. But we haven't seen Montgomery do this, and now he is, right? And the thing is, like, if they felt the pressure in games 5 and 6, they're going to be feeling triple the pressure in game 7. Like, you go from having the series in the palm of your hand. You just have to end it. You see one win. And I know it's hard. Right? But you blow a chance in game 5. You don't show up really in game 6. You get overpowered. Now you got game 7. You got Montgomery calling out Pastrnak. I like that he's calling him out. I do. I like that. He needs it. You need to try these things out now. I'm curious what you think.
Oh, well, let's be honest. I think he recognizes the urgency in himself. Right?
Yeah.
I think he's aware of what's on the line on Saturday night. It may not. Yeah, I'd have a hard time believing that he makes it out of it if they lose again. So I think he senses urgency, and he's going to try to get the best out of his best player. Like his best player needs to show up on Saturday night. And is he capable of having a night like Nylander had tonight? Yeah, absolutely. But I think Montgomery realizes if they lose again down 3-1, and as 6 1/3 said, it would be the first time ever. I think as good a coach as he's been in the regular season, I don't think he makes it out of it. And it's a good point. It probably happens on both sides. Whichever team loses on Saturday, their coach is probably gone.
100%. 100%. It's true. And you think about, like, you know, both coaches are coaching for their job on Saturday. When you think about it, like, it looked like what's funny, after game 4, when we were on here, and then when we got off and I was reading a lot of the coverage, coming out of Toronto, Chris Johnson from The Athletic wrote a thing like, the Leafs are done as we know it. They're going to blow it up, trade Marner, this and that, fire Keefe. There was this, they felt like they hit rock bottom. And as I said to you on that show, when something hits rock bottom, the only way to go up is up. The only way to go is up. Oh, I messed up the motivational speech. But when you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up, right? And that third period in game 4, Bruins gave them a little bit of life. They scored that goal. And then the Leafs dominated up until Nylander took that stupid penalty on DeBrusk. And I remember thinking of that moment and reading the stuff after, like, they're calling this series before it ends. And teams that are proud typically find a way to fight that a little bit. Now, the Bruins, the Leafs didn't fight it that hard in game 5. As we said, the Leafs did not have this incredible game plan in game 5. They weren't outstanding in game 5. The Bruins didn't show up. That was really what it was. And then game 6, similarly, like, the Leafs played well. Certainly, they made necessary adjustments. The Bruins didn't make any. And, like, that to me is where, like, for both coaches, and I think for Montgomery especially, there's been a lot made about Montgomery getting outcoached in the playoffs. This was a narrative in Dallas. It was a narrative last year, and the last 2 games, it's been that. And going back to changing up the lineup going into game 5, like, that's, I think, where you can look back to and go, what were you doing? It's what we look back to last year, right? Remember Bergeron and Marchand didn't start game 5 on the same line. So, like, it's a roundabout way of saying that both coaches are coaching for their job, but we're a Bruins show. Montgomery's coaching for his job on Saturday. No doubt. Because coaches get canned in the NHL for much less.
Yeah. And I think if I'm just speaking from, this would be the eye perspective for me. If I were the coach of the Bruins, I'm trying everything in my power to get matchups. I am playing Pastrnak and Marchand 23 plus minutes. I'm seeing double shifts. I'm getting McAvoy out there as much as I can. Carlo, who has been your best defenseman probably in the series.
Yep.
I'm shortening that bench right away. Like, I'll give you a shift to figure out who's going, and then because if you get into the second round, you say, like, his job's saved. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that Montgomery's gone if they lose, but they win, he stays for sure. Right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You've gotten far more out of this team, and I'll keep saying that. You've gotten far more out of this team than I thought they were capable of. Thought that they would be a fringe playoff team, and to be in that conversation for the President's Cup down the stretch, although that's proved to be worthless, right? Like, but it's a nice recognition for you. Like, they were in that conversation the whole year. So for habits, for consistency, he's done a great job. I don't want to see them lose on Saturday night.
No, I don't either. And I think you're right. If they win on Saturday, he stays 100%. No doubt. A little hiccup in the series, but I mean, look at Claude Julien, right? Claude Julien, a lot of I didn't cover the team at the time, but in 2013, a lot of the beat writers were saying, he should be fired because they were blowing that 3-1 lead to the Leafs in the first round. And then they were down a ton in game 7, and everyone was like, oh, Claude's done. Claude's done. And a lot of people thought Claude was done after the collapse against the Flyers in 2010, right? Where they were up 3-0 and then lost, but they decided to keep it together. They win the cup the next year. But I think that's what people thought after last year. It was like, oh, you collapsed in the first round with this team, with this good of a group. You'll get them next year, right? You'll turn it right around and you'll be right back at it next year. And the 2011 team had their hiccups. They were down 2-0 in that first round of Montreal.
Yep.
That third round against Tampa, they had some issues. I know they wasted a hat trick game from David Krejci at one point. They were down 2-0 to Vancouver in the Cup. None of those, I mean, except for the Canadiens thing, none of those things are fireable, but they were, pieces of adversity. But, I think 2 straight years, if they lose Saturday, right? 2 straight years of falling in a series in round 1 after being up 3-1. Like, I don't know how you run it back. I don't. And it goes back to what we've mentioned a couple times now, like to come out flat. Not just flat, but 2 shots in the first period of game 1 or game 5 and
tonight.
1 in game 6. Like, you can't avoid that. It's not like they're peppering the goalie and Wall is just making 55 saves and it just isn't going in the net, right? It's not that. And that, to me, that's where, and I'm not like, oh, Montgomery should be gone. But the facts of it are, like, I'm not rooting for the guy's downfall. My God. But it just what's happened. If what happens Saturday, if they lose, you have to think it. I mean, I don't know how you come back from that. I don't know how you come back from that.
No, and I agree with. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, continue. I was coming to the end of my point.
No, I was just going to say, and someone made the point, like, if the Bruins let Montgomery go, he's going to get picked up by someone else in a heartbeat. Like, I'm not denying that he's a good coach. It'd just be hard. It'd be hard to defend him to the players in a fan base when you've lost 3-1, when you've been in full control and you've made questionable lineup changes in game 5 both years, right? Like, I think that's fair to say. You won on the road twice. You came back, you made lineup changes. You're in a situation where you're playing in a game 7 at home. And so I think that'd be really hard for him. I'm not saying he's not a good coach. Obviously, great coach. Will have an NHL job next year, regardless of what happens with him here. I'm just saying Saturday is pretty important for a lot of people, I think.
It is. It's very important. And you know what's interesting?
And I think for players too, I think there'll be and whether they can ship them out or not, I think there'll be some players, if you lose here on Saturday, I bet Sweeney would be trying to do his best to get some of them out of here. And I'm not saying a full reset. I'm not saying hey, let's tear it down. But you'd be trying to find a way to offload some of those contracts if you could. I'm not saying that's a reality.
No, you're right. And in the sense of a shakeup more, right? So you're not trading core pieces. It would more be a shakeup. We can dive more into that. But game 7 obviously is Saturday, and we have a new sponsor in Game Time. And if you want to go to game 7, if you want to dare go to game 7, go to our friends over at Game Time. A quick word from our friends at Game Time. Quick break to tell you about my good friends over at Game Time. I am very excited about the NBA playoffs, and what's awesome is here in Boston, TD Garden is the best atmosphere for a playoff game. Thankfully, we have Game Time, which is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Maybe it's the NBA playoffs or it's the NHL playoffs. The same is true with the Bruins. TD Garden gets so fun during this time of year, and you want to be there. The Bruins and Celtics are in pursuit of championships, and as the rounds go on, the crowd gets better and better. Nothing beats it. And with Game Time, there's last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. There's flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And there are zone deals. Save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. Again, Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets and head over to Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code, again, CLNS. I can't be more clear about that. Use code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, back to the show. So you mentioned an interesting thing. It's got the comment section hopping about, in the event they lose Saturday. Again, we're not writing them off. We're not writing the Bruins off. But in the event that they did lose on Saturday, if they were to make some changes to the lineup, people are kind of pitching their ideas of what it would be. I mean, Olmark is sort of the obvious one, given they wanted to deal him at the deadline. But then you look at some other options, right? I mean, Jake DeBrusk is a pending UFA. I would assume he's probably gone. Grzelcyk is gone. But other roster, I mean, do you have any other ideas for roster players of guys that you wanted to kind of test the waters about?
I mean, you'd have to, and it'd be expensive to get rid of them, but I think you'd have to explore Hampus Lindholm and anyone's appetite to take him on. I think, unfortunately, with him, what you'd have to do is you'd probably have to trade him along with a first or a second round pick to entice someone to take that contract. He's what?
I think he has a no trade. I think he has a no trade and a no movement. Yeah,
No
no
trade.
trade clause. No trade clause. No trade clause, and then a no movement clause from 27 to 2030.
And so then you'd have to entice him to leave, which is you'd have to put him in the minors. And I don't know what that does, right? Like as I make
can
these,
they put? I don't know if they can put him in the minors.
Why
I
not?
mean, you can put him through waivers, but then a team's just going to pick him up.
Yeah, but then they have to take his contract.
You'd think you'd want something for Hampus Lindholm. He's a top pairing left shot defenseman. You need something for that.
What are you watching?
I'm saying that, okay, during the regular season, though, he's at least a top 4 left shot defenseman.
Was he this year?
I mean, the production dipped, but overall, yeah, I'm not giving away Hampus Lindholm for nothing. I'm not. I can't. They can't do that.
Yep. In 2023, which was a year, he had 53 points. This year, he had 26. And something happened in the playoffs last year, and nothing good is happening this year. You have to explore. Like, would you rather have his $7 million? I would rather have his $7 million, right? Like, I'd rather have his $7 million.
You got to get something for that. And I agree. He had a down year this year compared to last year, but I'm not ready to give him up for nothing. I agree with you. If you could convince him to, hey, we're going to test the market for you, would you be okay with that? My guess is he says no, because it's Boston and he's here long-term and he's signed here and all that stuff and he likes it. But yeah, I mean, if there was a no trade clause, yeah, that would be definitely one that you'd look to retool either your back end or something else. 100%. That would definitely be one person. But I don't know if you can't. I mean, not that you can't, but the odds are against you in that situation. And I don't mean to pour cold water on it, but
no, I'm just saying you want something for who's having watched him play the last 2 playoffs and then through this regular season and then this playoff, who would give you anything for him?
I mean, again, he got Norris votes last year. Someone would. Their teams are desperate. Teams in the NHL are dumber than you think.
Okay, well then,
you think.
Sign me up.
But again, trading him would be a hassle. I would think he has a no trade clause according to Cap Friendly. I have Cap Friendly up on my phone right now. He's got no trade clause.
I don't. I mean, again, I don't. This is as someone that's watching. He's been. I would love to the advanced stats. I'd love to see the advanced stats and what his series look like. I mean,
I can try to pull it up. I don't want it to kill my Wi-Fi. It's been
really hard. It's been really hard to watch him in this series.
It has. It has. I mean, other guys, if we want to play this game, like, do you try to make a shakeup type move like the Florida Panthers did, where you trade, a franchise piece for franchise piece, Huberto for Kachuk? Like, Zaka's not on that level, but I mean, do you inquire about that? The tough
Well,
part
so
with
then,
Zaka is like Pastrnak loves him, right? Like,
yeah. And so if you're talking about a franchise change, I mean, if your option is, do you want to hear what your option is?
I know what you're gonna say. I know exactly what you're gonna say, but say it because it'll get the comment section going.
All right. So your option is then at this point, if you're looking for a shakeup, but you don't really want to kill it, so you're not going to trade McAvoy, you're not going to trade Pastrnak, you've got to explore what a trade looks like for Marchand.
Oh,
Can
I
you?
thought you were gonna. I thought you were saying Pastrnak 100%. I thought you were saying trade
No,
Pastrnak,
no,
which
I
I
don't
was
think
getting
you. I
notified.
don't think you can ever get rid of an elite goal scorer that can put up anywhere between 40 and 60 goals at any given time. And when he's hot, he's hot. I just think at the age, and you're looking for a specific market. And again, I don't know what Marchand's no trade. I would assume he has some sort of limited no trade or something along those lines. But you could get something for him from a team that's close to being a Stanley Cup contender, right? Like I don't know who that team is, but I still think you could get something for him. He's 36 right now, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what's interesting? I was so last off season when they lost Krejci and Bergeron and everybody, I was like, if you're not going to make Marchand the captain, like, what is the point of having him around if you're not going to empower him to be the captain, right? Like, what is the point? And he could get you something, 100%. My only I know where you're coming from on this. The reason I would be against it is I actually think he's the one good veteran leader in that room that's been around there long enough. And he was great in the first 4 games. I mean, he was been their highest point getter, all that stuff. I agree with you. And, overall, the last 2 seasons, he slowed down a bit. He had double hip surgery, but
yeah.
I know where you're coming from. I know where you're coming
I'm
from
not
on that.
saying it as I would want him gone, but
Oh, no, I know.
I'm saying you need some sort of shakeup. Yeah, now a major shakeup would be McAvoy or Pastrnak because you have players under the age of 28 that are, you know, top players at their position across the league. You typically don't trade those players unless what you're getting back is of the same or close to value, although Boston seems to trade for lesser than Thornton and Sagan. Um, I think Marchand could get you something.
He
Or you
could.
could, right? You have more money. And the other option too is just let all the extra pieces go. The Grizzlies, that you trade Olmark, right, which is more than likely going to happen, and then the cap hit goes up, and you used some of that free money to you let DeBrusque go, and you use that free money to get go in free agency. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who's
Yeah.
coming in to improve your
I,
team.
I mean, I think when this series ends, whether the Bruins win or lose, I think the big takeaway is their 5-on-5 offense needs to be improved. That's to me, that's one of the biggest things. And that's an area where I think you definitely could fix. So I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this take. I've had this take kind of percolating for a while. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to do it when the series is over or after the season ends, save it. But I'll release it now for the people who are still watching at almost 12 a.m. A lot of people are going to mention they need more center depth. They need
Yeah.
higher end centers. And I think there is truth to that. But the reality is, are you really going to go, like, how are you going to get a legitimate number one center? You're going to have to give up a ton in a trade if that's the case. You have Patra waiting in the wings and developing. We'll see what ends up happening with him. Outside of this series, Coyle was terrific this season and good shutdown to top 6 center. Zaka has improved, top 6 center, all that stuff. And Pastrnak loves him. Where you can improve and where you need to improve is on the wings. That's where you need to improve, right? DeBrusque has not given you what you've wanted out of him. Pastrnak is Pastrnak. Marchand is Marchand, but he's getting older. And then, they've had Geeky up there. They had Geeky up there tonight. They've had Heinen up there. They need to improve on the wings. Yes.
You can't win a draw. You don't have a playmaking center, but you want more help on the wings so that don't have possession of the puck because you can't win a draw or you can't pass them open.
Well, I think that's going to be easier to find than a number one, center that is a franchise guy. I just think that's going to be easier to find. It is.
Oh, easier to find, but that doesn't make you better.
Oh, I think it definitely makes you better. I don't think it makes you, a Stanley Cup contender, but depending on who the wingers are. I mean, again, I think you can, if you have 4 legitimate top 6 wings up in the top 6 with Coyle and Zaka down the middle, you're a much better team. You are. You're a much better team. But again, that's easier said than done. That's way easier said than done.
I just think that I think it's clearly evident that you need a number one center. Now, who the hell is available for that? I don't think
that's the
much.
problem. That's the thing, right? Like yes, a number one center would be terrific. But do you put a Coyle or Zaka in a package for a number one center? Would that be enough depending on the package? You don't have any first round picks.
No.
So I don't know if that's enough. But
no.
You know what? Let's focus on the lineup for game 7.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Let's jump back into this. We're good. But you know what? I think the people like this. I like it. What do you do lineup wise going into game 7? Who are you taking anybody out?
I mean, Heinen's not. I assume Heinen was injured, right? Like that's why they pulled him out tonight.
They said he was day to day.
So I don't know what that looks like. I think you got to get a little bit faster. I don't think that Maroon does anything for you in a game 7 scenario, right? Like you need pace here. So whoever that is, I think this is me, would draw in for him. And again, I'm probably not playing a whole heck of my fourth line. My fourth line might get a shift or two here and there, but yeah, I got to load up that top 9 with my best players. I don't think that Brazeau's done much for you either.
No,
right? Like I think in this series, not being able to keep up with pace, he's turned the puck over a fair amount just inside the offensive blue, and that's obviously part of their game plan. Not the turnover portion of it, but the slip play off the entry on the wall. He's turned it over a handful of times there. So I would say I would want to get a little faster. I don't even know what your availability, right? Like, so that's Heinen, Lauko.
Lauko has an interesting case. A little faster, kind of like a shooting him out of a cannon for game 7. Like I'm okay with that. I think I'd be okay with that. Yeah. For if he drew out for like Maroon to get a little faster, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, get a little faster, get a little energy, get someone that can skate with pace, be a net front presence, right? Like something like that. I mean, yeah, you got to be able to push back with some pace, and I don't think those two guys have played particularly well to stay in the lineup or anything like that. A different series, it might, like a heavier series against Florida, that'd be a good fit for him. By game 7, where you need energy, I got to get guys that can skate.
Do you stick Marchand with Pastrnak?
Yeah, probably. And by and large, for what I talked about before, give someone for Pastrnak to play off. I think Marchand has done a great job in his career playing with anyone. I think obviously he got a large opportunity to play with Bergeron for a lot of his career, but I think he creates his own energy. He's great in puck possession. He can create his own offense, so he's fine. I'd like to alleviate some pressure from Pastrnak and help get him going a little bit. So I don't know who your center is. I don't know who your center is on that line. It's obviously Coyle or Zaka, but which of the two?
It'd probably be Zaka, because I feel like that line would be all offense. then you'd stick DeBrusque, Coyle, and
Geeky.
like, do you go Geeky? I actually liked the Marchand, Coyle, Geeky line. I thought they were okay in the third. But I think you have to, because think about it like this, right? Like in an elimination game like that, you need, like, at some point Montgomery's going to put Marchand with Pastrnak at some point. Like they're going to be back together at some point. You might as well just start the game with them. So I'm fine with that. In terms of the bottom six, where the bottom six has been pretty good, for the most part, I've actually liked Beecher, Boquist, and Maroon. But I agree with you. I think you need pace, you need speed. So you probably do slot out Maroon. I mean, like, you need the leadership too, right? So do you keep him do you keep him around? But I think you probably put Lauko in there. And then Brazeau is, I think he can give a little more offense than Maroon can. So I think that's...
Yeah, and I see the commenter, right? Like if you put Marchand and Pastrnak, it makes it easier. In theory, you have last change at home, so you should win the matchup every time. So I think you've got to. I don't know. We've been killing Montgomery for all the changes. So if you put the people together that we say they should, we'd still probably be killing them if they lose a game on Saturday. You've got to create more than two goals in the last two games, right? Like that's not, one goal is not going to get it done on Saturday night. It's just not going to happen.
No.
So you've got to be able to create some offense. Yeah, I think I'd put the two of them together. Fine, Zucker, if that's your center, then you go Coyle, DeBrusque, Geeky. I think DeBrusque could be the X factor. I think he played well in the first period, then kind of disappeared.
He had that first rush like 22 seconds into the game, and then
which was the same rush that Tavares had the other night. Except no one's Toronto does a better job cleaning up in front of their own net. I would put your best third line together. I don't know what's your best third line then. Frederick. What?
Van Riemsdyk, Brazeau.
No.
If Heinen's day to day, that's the problem. If Heinen's day to day, because Heinen brings more speed than JVR. Also, but do you want the veteran guy like JVR in there who you can somewhat rely upon? If you need a goal or if there's a chance to finish around the net, I trust Van Riemsdyk doing that more than a guy like Heinen, let's say. But I've liked Heinen in this series, and Beecher came out in Game 5. I thought Beecher was pretty good tonight. Drew a penalty, took it hard to the net. I haven't seen the face-off numbers. I'd have to see.
I don't think he was good. I think he was 16% at one point, at least what I saw.
Oh, for face-offs? Oh, I did not see that. Hold on, I don't
think it was. I don't think it was very good tonight, Evan. So,
well,
but
he took it hard to the net once. That was cool. I mean, what's interesting though? Like, I'm looking at the line. I'm looking at the line numbers tonight. DeBrusque, Zacha, Pastrnak outchanced the Leafs 14-4 at 5-on-5. Marchand, Coyle, Geeky 13-6 at 5-on-5. JVR, Frederick, and Brazeau 5-3, and then Maroon, Beecher, and Boquist were outchanced 6-9. So, I mean, I don't know. And then on D, actually, let's start with this because the comment's up on the screen. Would you ever consider Linus Ullmark for Game 7? I would not. I would not.
No, I don't. That'd be unfair to him at this point, right?
It would.
And Swayman was what, your best player tonight ish. Didn't have to make as many big saves as he had in the past, but still, I mean the save on Domi. He gets back-to-back breakaways, and one of them's going to go in. Yeah, that's the thing. Like Boston just hasn't created any odd man rushes either. But no, sorry. Let me stick to this one question. No, Ullmark is not playing. Swayman's going in the net.
I agree. Do you keep the D? You keep the D as is?
Yeah, I don't think that you need to break the puck out better. I'm not, and I'm going to get crushed here. I'm not as down on Grizzly as everyone else is. He's a better puck mover, skates better. Yes, he's not the strongest guy, but he was. But I don't know that you change it. I don't know. I guess that's where I'm not quite sure what I would do if I was Jim Montgomery. What do I do with my back end? I know that for you to be successful in the game, you've got to be able to break it out, and you've got to get more out of Hampus Lindholm. You have to.
Yeah. And you need more out of McAvoy. You need more out of McAvoy, too. I mean, again, that first goal, he goes off of him and sort of screens Swayman a bit. And, you know, he's rushing the puck a ton in that third. And I think you need that. But I just, you need more out of your back end. I don't think I make any changes, though.
Okay.
I don't. Because again, I don't think it's not broken back there. I mean, we mentioned the breakout issues, but who's coming in? I mean, Grzelcyk would help with that. But, I mean, this was the same decor that won games 3 and 4. I know that feels like a month ago now. Man, what a change. Remember after game 4, we were like, good, feeling good. You know, the Leafs, my God, the Leafs. The Leafs. And look at where we are now. Just not even.
Felt really good about it. You had a team in turmoil. Superstars yelling at each other on the bench.
Yeah.
Like you felt really good about where you were at for game 5. And that changed pretty quickly with a poor effort in game 5. And here you are.
President Reagan might be making a good point here. Win or die with this lineup. Thanks to Ronald Reagan for tuning back in. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I wouldn't if Montgomery and the Bruins roll out this lineup again. Yeah, no, I take that back. You've got to get faster for game 7. Sorry, you got to get faster. You're too slow. You don't create any havoc on the forecheck. You don't create any turnovers. That's only going to come with pace. I'm sorry, I'm definitively taking out Maroon, and I'd really evaluate what Brazeau has done for you in these 2 games. You're 0-2 with him in. He hasn't created any offensive opportunities.
No.
He is physical at times, sure, but is that could be enough to get you over for the win? I don't know. I think it's proven that he hasn't worked. So, but I don't know who draws in. Like if Heinen's available, he goes in for one of those 2. I don't know. Do you feel comfortable putting in Lauko at that point?
My guess is Reeves is out of the series. They didn't play Reeves tonight. They had like Gregor in for him, I think, and he was noticeable. At least, you know, a little more impactful in the offensive zone. So, you know, if Maroon comes out and you throw Lauko in there, I'm fine with that. I am. Like I you know, it's a physical series, but at some point you're going to need someone to speed into the offensive zone or close quick on a Toronto defender. So yeah, Lauko, I'm with you. Lauko for Maroon. And you know what? And I see a lot of the commenters mentioning Andrew Peeke. Peeke, I think, was listed as week to week. So I don't think Andrew Peake's going to be available for Saturday. But my God, what a loss that was. And you still won 2 games after. I mean, you won games 3 and 4. But you like, that would help. He would help. And I you know, and again, none of this is on Swayman. I was saying this to someone earlier. Like, Jeremy Swayman has been really good in this series. And I think, you know, depending on what happens in game 7, you know, he's going for a new contract in the offseason. And I don't think this series, I think, has kind of increased his value a bit. You know, he's been their best guy. He's been the biggest reason why they won game 3. He was important in these games. He's keeping them close. Like, it's not him. It's the offense. The offense is not there at all. So, you know, I don't think this hurts Swayman. But I think like to end this, like going into game 7, do you feel any better about game 7 now than you did when we first hit record on this?
Like after getting all the complaining?
I think I'm glad that the most people are on this at the end, because a lot of times we start this like right when the game ends. So you have like 2 seconds to process. And like, that's why the first 10 minutes are kind of like all over the place, because like, you know, my thoughts are not even fully formed yet. So I'm curious if do you feel any better about Game 7 than you did at the start of this?
I do not. I don't feel better because I don't think you have any answers for why you've been flat for 4 of 6 periods, maybe even 5 of 6 periods the last 2 games. I think you'd feel much better about it if you had dominated a game and Joseph Woll stole the game. There wasn't a sense of urgency until the third period, and exactly what you're talking about. McAvoy taking some risks, putting a little bit more pressure in the offensive zone on Toronto, forcing them to defend, hitting that stretch pass, a little bit of an adjustment for zone entry. It's a little bit of a head scratcher why you've been so poor through 2 games, why you haven't. And I don't know if it's in front of you because I just clicked out of it. What were the high danger chances? Like there weren't enough. You didn't force Wall. Like you didn't.
There were 16 for the Bruins, 10 for the Leafs.
That's 16.
Yeah, at 5-on-5. Only 1 extra though, on the power play. So
I must have missed those 16. Where was I?
I was thinking the same thing. A lot of those must have come in the third period. No,
Okay.
actually, they had 9 in the second period. Never mind.
Okay. Hey, what do we know? Advanced stats. They got you. High danger chances.
But so, like, this is my thing with this series. Like, I don't feel good. I don't. Like, I just had someone DM me being like, the series isn't over. And it's true. It's not. It isn't over. And it wasn't in 2013 and it wasn't in 2018. And that to me is why I think there is solace, right? There is a little bit of confidence going into Game 7 because they are Toronto. They are the Leafs. Remember that. They're the Leafs. Okay. And and I know they were different teams, but they choked it in 2013. They choked it in 2018. But I don't know how you can feel good about this right now. Like the Bruins have not been playing well at home in the playoffs. They haven't. And it's been a couple of years of this. And they looked like garbage in games 5 and 6. And like, I don't know, like, does the offense, like, what adjustments do they make? What adjustments does Toronto make? So like, that's my thing. Like, you're going to need some puck bounces and you're not getting them right now. So I don't feel great. I don't. For the Bruins, I don't feel great. And I guess if we were like the Leafs post-game show, we probably wouldn't feel good either. Because it's like, oh my God, we've done this 3 times. We've done this 2 times before. It has not worked out. And now it's the 3rd time. But, you know, going off the way the Bruins have been playing the last 2 games and the pressure that's on them right now. I mean, Tyler Bertuzzi came out after the game. I'll find the quote. And said, he said, I think everybody's frustrated over there when talking about the Bruins. And Sheldon Keefe said, in my mind, we've just played 2 Game 7s, which is true. They have, and they've won both. Now, can they win a third? That's a big question. But I don't know. I don't feel great. I'm sorry. I don't. Series isn't over. Series not over. Hand up. Series isn't over. But I don't feel great about that for the Bruins. I don't.
No, I don't
just
either.
don't. I don't. And I'm sorry for the negativity. I am. But look at the last 2 games.
It's the last 2 games. It's the way they've played. It's a lack of. I don't want to keep using the word urgency. It's a lack of desperation. They haven't played desperate enough to win, and the Leafs have. Like they've blocked shot right, and yeah.
Well, here's the one thing, right?
I don't feel great about it.
Here's the one thing. If you want to feel good about Saturday, the Bruins were a streaky team this year. There were stretches of really good play and there were stretches of really bad play. Remember the trade deadline? Remember how bad they were around the trade deadline? Maybe this is a microcosm, right? Maybe games 1 through 4, strong. Game 5 and 6, back to earth. Maybe they're good in game 7.
Yeah. So in order for that to happen, Pastrnak has to have a great game. Then, like if it's streaky, he's the number 1 guy. He's a scoring option. He's got to be the best player on Saturday night. He has to be the best player.
Yeah. I agree with
You
you.
can't rely on Jeremy Swayman. Like, you've relied on him far too much. Give him a night off. You reverse roles. You've got to dominate Toronto for 2 periods where you're out shooting them, whatever, 25-12, and they feel a little bit desperate in the third period, and he can play well then. But like, give him some help here.
I agree. So I think, we don't feel great, but I think going into game 7, you need Pastrnak to be Pastrnak. You need him to be dominant. You need Swayman to continue to play the way he's been playing.
Yep.
And I think some of the adjustments we mentioned, you just need a little bit, and you see more urgency, right? And I think, I don't know, like you have to, it's so hard to go into a game 7 like this, I think, if you're the Bruins, because you're coming off these 2 games, but you need to go in just playing like you have nothing to lose, even though you have everything to lose. Like, that's the tough part, right? Like, but you need to have that mentality. So that's where it's at. Do we have any? Did we not cover anything? Is there any other leftover thoughts you have?
The only quick question would be legitimate. Is Matthews playing game 7? Has anything?
We won't know yet.
Would you play him? You've played so much better without him.
They're like the Bruins last year without Bergeron and Krejci. Remember, they won like 3 of 4 games without Bergeron and Krejci or something like that. They come back in and they lose 3 straight. I mean, Domi's been good on the draw too. Like, do you rush Matthews back? Because we don't know what he's dealing with. I saw someone on Twitter tweeted out a play where Matthews seemed to get his leg buckled underneath him. Like, he sort of like they were speculating they like tore his MCL or something. And all the Twitter doctors were like, yeah, he can't come back. So if it's something like that, then obviously you can't, it's a leg thing. And if it's a concussion, which is what other people are kind of speculating, and that's not confirmed or anything, but if it is a concussion, if it was, you really can't rush that either. But I don't know if it's actually an illness, yeah, you do. I think you do. Because if he is okay to play somehow for game 7, right? And you're the Leafs and you lose game 7 and you didn't play him, it's like, why would you? He's your best player. He scored 69 goals this year. Why would you not play him? Right. But if if you do put him in and lose, it's like, well, you got to put Matthews in. You can't not put Austin Matthews in the lineup.
Okay.
So I think that's it. But I don't think judging off of what everyone's been saying, I don't know if we'll be ready to play for Saturday. I don't think that. But if he is, I would expect him back in the lineup.
Yeah.
But
no doubt.
I agree. Don't rush a concussion back. As Clue 96 says.
No, I'm not saying
not rush a concussion.
Yeah, no one's confirmed anything. I would never put anyone back in with any sort of injury. Yeah.
No, I know. But the people in the comments are like, "Oh, bring him back." It's like, no, like, no need if he has a concussion or something really serious. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we covered it all, right? I think we've got everything. So
Saturday will be either really exciting or really sad.
Or we'll be really sad. So, but we hope you guys have enjoyed these. We've been going late. A lot of people on tonight. Thank you all for watching. As always, we're presented by Prize Picks. Use that promo code CLNS. Game Time. Use that promo code CLNS. And yeah, that's been game 6. Bruins lose 2-1, 3-3. Game 7. That's Carl Corazzini, Evan Marinofsky. We will see you Saturday night.